Hi, Virtual English 2. Today we're going to start our unit over inquiry and exploration. And basically, if you can inquire and explore, you can learn anything. So this purpose of writing, you have a question that you're trying to figure out the answer to. And so that's what we're going to be doing this week. Tomorrow, I'll tell you more about the big assignment that we do on Monday and the little assignments we're going to do along the way. But today, I'm just going to talk about how to integrate outside information into an essay. Because since you're going to be inquiring and exploring, you're going to be exploring a topic, you're going to be reading information about that topic. And so you're going to be able to bring that into your essay and give credit where credit is due through citing. So let me bring up this and share this right here. So how to integrate outside material. So there are three main ways that you'll integrate outside material. You'll summarize, paraphrase, and quote. Now, you need to make sure that you always cite information you integrate from an outside source. You need to give credit where credit is due. And often this is just simply by using a parenthetical. And we'll talk more about what a parenthetical is deeper into this lesson. And you need to actually make sure that you connect the information to your discussion. So don't just drop a random quote, drop random information. You need to blend it into what you're talking about, make it seem relevant, make it seem make sense why you're bringing it up. And we'll talk more about that once we get to the quote sandwich. So the first thing that we're going to look at is summaries. Now, often you will students confuse what summaries and paraphrases are, but basically what a summary is whenever you use your own words to condense a large amount of information into a brief space. The example right here that is on Classroom and that I'm showing you at the moment talks about a movie. How if you see a movie, you're not going to tell your friend the entire movie in 2 hours. You're going to cut it down to like the high points and just kind of give them the gist. I like to use the example of a cupcake. So let's imagine this is a cupcake, okay? So whenever you're summarizing, you're just taking a slice of the cupcake, and that way you kind of get a good idea of what the cupcake tastes like, and you eat it, and so you get the general gist of what the cupcake's about. That's what you're doing when you're summarizing. You're not giving us everything, you're just giving us the main gist of it. Now, summaries are great for integrating a general idea of large chunks of information into your essay when the details aren't important. You just need to give the readers the gist of what's going on. One of the best advices I have ever received for teaching students how to do summaries is these three things. You need to make sure that you tell what's important, tell it in a way that makes sense, but don't tell too much. That is the key at the very end. Don't tell too much. Tell what's important, tell it in a way that makes sense, but don't tell too much. Let's talk about paraphrases now. Now, these are similar because, yes, both of them use your own words, but they're really different when it comes to this. A summary will be shorter than a paraphrase most of the time. A paraphrase, you need to cover all of it. Summaries, you kind of just cover the gist of what's going on. Paraphrases show you everything. So the paraphrase will be about the same length, if not longer than. Here's the example I always like to use for a paraphrase. So here's the cupcake. You eat the cupcake. That is your source and interacting with the source. All right, you kind of digest it. Then you throw up the cupcake. Now, the cake's still there in the throw up. It doesn't look like the cupcake that you had eaten a while ago, but it's still there. Everything that consisted of that cupcake is there, but it looks different. That's what a paraphrase is. You're taking the original and putting your own spin on it, okay? So, and you're putting it in your own words. Now, let's talk about this right here. This is kind of important that I really need to kind of get across to you. In the past, and I'm not going to throw any particular teachers under the bus, but some teachers are known to say, in order to paraphrase, all you have to do is change the amount of words. That's not true. It needs completely different. It needs to look completely different. You can't just go through and change every couple of words and it be a paraphrase. No, that's not a paraphrase. That's plagiarism, son. You can't do that. Let's talk about quotations. Now, quotations have their special marks. And here's the big thing. A lot of kids overquote because it's so easy to quote. And you only really need to quote in a particular situation. You need to use them extremely sparingly, as the document says. You should only use a quotation when it is important to an author's exact words for some reason, typically due to an phrasing they used or to verify that that exact idea that they were discussing. So that's the only time that you would actually use that as the use that for a quote. So you need to show exactly what they're talking about, or they use a very interesting way that they phrased it. Now, why do you need to use, otherwise you should use paraphrases, summaries. In fact, most essay would probably be paraphrases and summaries. In fact, honestly, for this essay that you're going to write for me the next coming week, you're mainly probably going to use summaries. You use paraphrases, summaries, and quotes to kind of weave it together in a nice synthesized rope. But I know for the fact that most of you all probably use summaries, which is fine. Now, there are two reasons why you need to resist using a lot of quotes. Inserting someone else's style, someone else's words, is really jarring to the reader. And on top of that, you can use a quote and not actually know what it's talking about, where if you summarize and paraphrase, you have to show that you understand what is being said. Let's talk about citations. That's giving credit where credit is due. There are two types of citations. You have in-text citations and a works cited page. You have to have them work together. They work in tandem. And in-text citations where you say, here's who said my source, here's who I'm giving credit to, because that's all they want is people want credit. They don't mind you using their ideas. They don't mind you using their information. You just got to give credit where credit is due. And that's what you're doing right here, is giving credit where I got this information from. Now, there are two types of in-text citations that you can use. One is a running text that we're going to look at, and the other one is a parenthetical. So running text is where you kind of use the author at the beginning before you provide the information. So the example they give you is, in his book, Oranges, the Fruit of the New World, John Smith says, oranges are delicious, and anyone who does is a communist. Page 9. Now, let's note real fast a big difference between MLA style citations and APA style citations. Most of the time, and most of you will do APA style citations, and APA style citations focus on the year, using like a year. So instead of like the page, what we have here, MLA likes page numbers, APA uses year. So instead of the page number, you put the year of using APA. I'm perfectly fine with either. I know as a teacher, I'm supposed to make you do MLA, but if you APA, that's me. But that's how you do it. You first say, here's who said it, and you provide what they said, and then you put where you got either the page number or the year, depending on which citation style you're following. This right here is a paraphrase, and I'll tell you one second. If you're integrating a quote, you should be using a running text citation, as you need to know who is saying this before you read the quote. Otherwise, we won't make much sense of need to. Also be used for summaries and paraphrases. So, example, it's a paraphrase. John Smith thinks that anyone who doesn't like oranges is a communist. For a second and figure out why that right there is a paraphrase of what I have. Do you know why? The answer is it doesn't talk about anything about the oranges, and that's why it is a paraphrase and not. That's why it is a summary and not a paraphrase. I just butchered that, and I'm not going to edit this because I have to do a lot of stuff. The other option is known as a parenthetic, because all the information is contained in the parentheses at the very end. Here's the example. Some people even love oranges less of anyone who doesn't share their love for these juicy citrus fruits. Parentheses, Smith 59. Now, one last thing, the first time you use an outside source, use both the first and last name. After that, there is more than one author of the same last name, or to them as the last name, not the first. Using someone's first name implies a close familiarity and is also very informal. Most of you will be using online sources for this project that we're about to do. So, and often they don't have the author. The organization becomes the author then. And so another thing, let's say you're doing something that requires you to visit the Missouri State High School Athletics Association, MSHA. The very first time you mention it, you'd say Missouri State High School Athletics Association, and in parentheses, you put MSHSAA, MSHA. And then from that point forward, you could refer to it as Misha. All right, then a works cited page. As a works cited page is necessary to give the information, to give meaning to the in-text citations. All we get in the in-text is the name and the page number. The works cited page is where we get the necessary information to connect the citations to where they actually live. So so you need to have both of them work in tandem in order for you to work it out. The in-text citation, the parenthetical, is where you are giving credit where credit is due. And then your works cited page is where you can find that information. Now, if you choose to go to college and you start leveling up your writing ability and the things you're going to have to look at, the works cited page is actually, you can find a lot of sources. So let's say you're reading a source and you find information about that source that you like. This right here, English with an Accent by Lippy Green. Let's say that I liked what I was reading and I want to learn more. I can flip back to her references and I can then go and find, this is an index, here's the references. I can find that actual article or book or whatever they were referencing and read it and get more information about that particular idea that they were discussing. And so once you get deeper into it and you need to find more and more sources to support you, that's a good place to sources in that works cited page. And basically you're saying, here's where I found it. This right here is an essay that I had to write in my master's program last year. And so as you can see in my parenthetical right here, I'm citing I got my information from. I'm giving credit to where credit is due, but you don't know where that information lives. So you go down here to my works page, you can find I got that information and go and access it and look it up and all that fun jazz. All right, so that is the importance of a works cited page. You do need to have one so people can follow your trail and see where you got your information from. All right. The next thing I want to talk about real fast is how to create a citation. So let me pop that open. Now the in-text citation is fairly easy, but I know what you're saying. How am I gonna, I don't know how to make a works cited page. It's like Chinese, Mr. Davidson, I don't understand it. Well, guess what? You don't have to worry about it. And I'm not logging into Citizen Bank. I need to go to cite this for me. Cite this for me. So there are a couple of websites that will do this for you. The popular ones are Citation Machine. That's the one I used in college and I liked a lot, and it yelled at me for using ad block, and I'm not going to turn off ad block, so I wouldn't show you that. But all you do is click create citation. Most of you will be using website, but you could also use a book, journal, article, and etc. There's also Cite This For Me. This is the one I used here recently that is pretty good, and EasyBib is another one. So let's say that I want to, this is a college football website that I like, and let's say I want to, I'm going to back up for a second. And let's say I want to quote this article right here about the college football nail biter directory. So I'm going to click on that and I read it and I want to cite something from that. I'm going to copy the URL and then go over to any of these. We'll go to Cite This For Me. I'm going to add a reference. I'm going to choose my source type. I have a variety of these. Underneath more is where you get even more. If you get a book, if you're doing a book, on the very back of the book near the barcode, there's this thing called an ISBN number. You could use that and that would help you bring up the citation. Same thing for an academic journal. There's a number that is called a DOI number that would help these citation machines kind of find the information a little bit more effectively. We're doing a website. We're going to click website. We either cite manually, which we could do that if we wanted, or we can search it. And most of the time they can scrape the website and find most of the information if need be. This one does not. And so we're going to have to add more information, which is fine. So it found all that, but it doesn't have the author, the publisher, the publication date. So we got to go find that information. So this was published on October 5th, 2020. All right, so the author's first name is Ryan. His last name is Nanny. In fact, I can see that right here. So I'm going to type in his name, Ryan Nanny. I got the website, all that stuff. The publisher is Vox Media. I just know that off the top of my head. But if I needed to search the website to try to find it, it would be near the very bottom right here. So Vox Media or SB Nation, either one of those would have worked. And I also needed to provide the access date. So the date I got this from, which is October the 13th, 2020. It is my younger sister's birthday today. Happy birthday to her. She'll never see this video. And then complete citation. Voila, there's the citation. You copy the bibliographic citation, and then you paste that in your works cited page, and that's all you got. That's all you got to do to create a works cited page. That easy. And you're citing your sources, and you're giving credit where credit is due. One last thing. The last thing I want to do today is I want you to understand what a quote sandwich is. So here's a quote sandwich. A quote sandwich is pretty simple. I'll have this entire document on Classroom. Basically, you introduce a quote. So you need to have like a signal phrase like Robin Lenkoff argues that, then you provide the quote itself. That's the meat of the sandwich. And then you need to explain it. A lot of you will introduce a quote, provide the quote, but you'll never explain the relevance of why you're including that quote. You need to explain it. Why is that quote important? And by doing that, you have an entire quote sandwich. So what I want you to do is I want you to watch this video. I'm going to post it to Classroom. It's by Stephen Colbert, and he is going to serve you up a whole bunch of quote sandwiches. Throughout this video, he's going to introduce his quote, so introduce who said it. He's going to provide you with the context of the quote itself, and then he's going to make jokes, and those jokes is him explaining the relevance of why that quote is important. So I want you to watch that. That's your homework. You don't actually have to do any homework. Just watch the video and notice how he does the quote sandwich, how he introduces the quote, provides the quote, and explains the quote. That's all you have to do. And tomorrow I'll be back to talk to you about the bigger assignment that you're going to be doing this week, and the smaller assignments that go along with that. So I will see y'all later. Toodles. Bye.